I drove 4 hours on Christmas Eve with my little girl and boxes wrapped in bright red paper, believing that behind that door, there would be warmth. But I was wrong. My chair was taken. My name wasn't spoken. And when my mother looked at me, she said only one thing: tonight is for real family. In that moment, beneath laughter and twinkling lights, I realized the deepest kind of rejection doesn't come from strangers. It comes from those you once sacrificed everything for. This is my story, Lana. A mother, a daughter, a woman who once believed love could be earned through loyalty, and how I chose to rise to cut ties and to rebuild from decades of quiet pain. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more raw, emotional, and unforgettable storytelling films. Snow clung to the windshield like frostbitten fingerprints blurry under the sweep of Lana's tired wipers. The interior of her car was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the heater and the occasional crunch of snow under the tires as she drove slowly down the icy road. Her hands clenched the steering wheel, knuckles pale, veins tight. Her eyes bloodshot, wet, and distant, betrayed more than fatigue. In the back seat, Mira, her 8-year-old daughter, sat wrapped in a red puffer coat, head leaned against the window, silently watching snowflakes melt into streaks of water. The Christmas lights they passed blurred into soft neon halos, mocking the quiet ache in Lana's chest. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. Not like this. She hadn't said a word since leaving her mother's house 32 minutes ago. Not when Mira asked, "Why didn't Grandma save us any of the cookies?" Not when she whispered, "Did I do something wrong?" Lana's voice had vanished. All she could do was drive. Her foot eased off the gas as they approached a traffic light glowing red through the flurry. She stopped, exhaled slowly, then reached for the volume knob on the radio. Silent Night was playing. She turned it off. The silence felt more honest. She rested her head back for a moment, and then she began to speak, not aloud but within herself, the way people talk when everything they've been holding in can't be swallowed anymore. "I'm Lana, 35, financial director, single mom." Her voice was calm in her mind, but it was the kind of calm born from exhaustion, not peace. "I've built a good life, stable, predictable. On paper, I'm the success story the rest of the family likes to name drop when they want to sound proud. But no one actually knows what it cost me to get here, what it cost Mira." The light turned green and she continued driving. 6 years. That's how long I've been sending money back home. Quietly, no praise, no recognition. Every month a wire transfer. Every time their pipes burst, I sent repairmen. When Dad lost his job, I paid off their mortgage to keep the bank away. When Kane failed out of college and couldn't pay rent, I covered that too. She gritted her teeth. They always made it sound like help was something I owed them, like I should be grateful for the chance to serve. Mira stirred in the back seat. Lana glanced at the rearview mirror and softened. Her little girl's face was still peaceful, but tired cheeks pink from the cold lips slightly parted. A flash of red fabric peeked out from her lap, the dress Lana had picked out specially for tonight. A velvet red Christmas dress with silver stars stitched along the hem. She looked like a holiday card, except there'd been no picture-perfect moment. Lana blinked back tears and refocused on the road. It hadn't always been this way. There was a time years ago when family still felt like something real. When her mother called crying on the phone after her father's mild stroke, Lana hadn't hesitated. "Whatever you need, I'll take care of it," she'd said. And she had. Every month after that call, she allocated a portion of her paycheck, first $500, then $1,000, sometimes more. Even when Mira was just a toddler and Lana was juggling diapers and spreadsheets and a boss who thought single mothers were weak links, she made the payments. She remembered one night vividly. Mira had a fever. Lana was up all night holding her forehead to forehead, whispering lullabies in the dark. At 5 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text from her mom. Gas got shut off again. "Can you send $300? No, how's Mira? No, I miss you. Just the ask." She wired it before breakfast. That's what daughters do, right? That's what good daughters do. But now tonight, sitting in her idling car outside a gas station with a blinking red sign and an overflowing trash bin, Lana couldn't stop shaking. She thought back to just a few hours earlier, pulling up to her childhood home for the first time in years. The same yellow shutters, the same uneven porch light. Mira had been bouncing with excitement in the back seat. "Do you think Grandma will let me put the star on the tree?" she'd asked. Lana had smiled genuinely and said, "I bet she saved it just for you." But the moment they stepped inside, the warmth drained from the air. Kane was holding court in the living room, surrounded by cousins and aunts. The fireplace flickered behind him as he laughed, loud, theatrical, smug. He looked clean-cut, healthier than she remembered, even confident, as if the last few years hadn't left him spinning between short-term jobs and angry girlfriends. He was sitting in their father's armchair, the one Lana used to sit in on Christmas Eve when she handed out the gifts. Now her seat was taken. Her presence, it seemed, was not just unexpected, it was unwelcome. And then her mother had said it. Lana could still hear the words ringing in her ears. Tonight's about family, Lana. Real family. You understand, don't you? As if she was a stranger. As if Mira didn't count. As if blood meant nothing if it didn't come with performative praise and proximity. The sting of it was still raw. Mira had looked up at her in confusion, tiny mittened hands clinging to Lana's coat sleeve. Where do we sit, Mommy? There had been no seat, no place at the table, no acknowledgement of the years Lana had sacrificed. So she'd turned around and walked back into the snow. Lana slammed the brakes a little too hard as she reached another stoplight, jerking the car gently. Mira stirred again in the back. I just wanted her to see where I came from, Lana thought, to believe in family. I thought maybe this year they'd treat us like we belong. Her throat ached from holding it in too long. Outside, the snow thickened. Flakes fell like ashes, quietly suffocating the world in white. The roads were near empty now. Christmas night in a rural town, quiet, cold, forgotten. Just like her, she pulled into a rest stop and turned off the engine. Silence. A sharp wind rattled the frame of the car. Mira blinked awake, blinking at the unfamiliar surroundings. Where are we? She asked sleepily. Lana turned around, tried to smile. Just taking a break, baby, she said softly. Are we going back to Grandma's? Lana hesitated. No, she said, not tonight. Mira looked down at her dress. But I didn't even get to eat the cookies. Lana reached back, brushed a strand of hair from Mira's cheek. I know, sweetheart. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind that stretches between generations and memories, and the ache of things that never happened. And then Mira asked, did I do something wrong? Lana felt her chest twist. No, she said quickly, firmly. You did everything right. Then why didn't they want us there? That was the question, wasn't it? Why didn't they? Lana's mind flashed with images, her mother's voice on the phone saying, just send what you can. Kane showing up drunk to her father's birthday. Her own Christmases alone in their tiny apartment watching holiday movies with Mira and pretending she didn't care that no one called. And now this. No one gets to treat you like you don't matter, Lana whispered. Not even the people who share your blood. She turned the engine back on. The dashboard lights blinked awake. The car rumbled softly. We're going home, she said. To our home. Mira nodded, slowly, eyes drifting shut again. The car pulled back onto the highway, its headlights cutting through the endless white. And as Lana gripped the wheel, she didn't feel weaker for what had happened. She felt clearer. Because sometimes you don't see the truth until it slams a door in your face. And sometimes the coldest winter comes not from the snow, but from the people you once called family. She had tried. God, she had tried. But now she was done begging to belong. The morning began with sunlight slanting through the living room window of their apartment, scattering golden stripes across the floor. Lana stood in the kitchen in her robe, watching the coffee drip into the pot, steam curling upward like hope. In the background, Mira spun in slow, delighted circles in her red Christmas dress, her pigtails bouncing, her voice high with anticipation. Do you think Grandma made the sugar cookies with the green sprinkles this year? She asked for the third time that morning. Lana smiled faintly. I'm sure she did, baby. They're your favorite, right? Mira nodded, clutching the small gift box she'd wrapped herself the night before. A glitter-covered mess of tape and too much ribbon holding inside a hand-drawn card and a purple beaded bracelet she'd made in class. I put extra sparkles because Grandma says Christmas needs to shine. Lana knelt and gently brushed a loose thread from Mira's sleeve. She's going to love it, sweetie. She hoped the lie didn't sound too obvious. Because the truth was, Lana didn't know what to expect. This would be the first time she'd stepped foot in her parents' house for a Christmas dinner since before Mira was born. 6 years. 6 years of phone calls that dwindled, of her mother avoiding questions with, you know how busy we are, of Kane somehow always being at the center of every conversation, every crisis, every reason they couldn't make it to visit. But this year, Lana had decided to bridge the gap. She told herself she was doing it for Mira. Maybe that was true, maybe it wasn't. Maybe deep down a sliver of her still wanted to believe family could be more than just a burden passed down. She loaded the trunk with care, 3 wrapped boxes for her parents, 1 for Kane against her better judgment, and a big tin of cranberry almond biscotti she'd stayed up baking past midnight. Her own tradition. And then with one last glance at their apartment lights off stockings still hanging unlit candles on the table, she climbed into the driver's seat. Mira slid into the back with her booster and her snow boots clutching her gift like it was treasure. Ready? Lana asked, turning the ignition. Ready, Mira sang, kicking her heels excitedly. The drive was just under 4 hours longer with the Christmas traffic, but it was a path Lana knew well. Each highway sign was a marker of time of distance, not just physical, but emotional. For years, she'd sent money back along these same invisible lines. Western Union direct deposits, Venmo when Kane was between jobs. The road home was paved with her sacrifice. An hour in, Mira hummed to herself, face pressed to the window. Will Uncle Kane be there? She asked suddenly. Lana hesitated. Probably. Do you think he'll like the mug I picked, the one with the dinosaurs? I think he'll like it just fine. Mira beamed. I hope he drinks hot cocoa with us. Lana didn't reply. At mile marker 117, the radio began to play I'll Be Home for Christmas. Lana's fingers twitched against the steering wheel. Her chest tightened at the familiar strings, the crooning voice, the aching warmth of nostalgia baked into every note. Mira, oblivious to the weight of the song, sang along off-key but joyful. Lana chuckled under her breath. Somewhere between the lyrics and the highway lines, she let herself believe it again. That this might be okay. That they'd step through the door and smell cloves and cinnamon and see the old tree blinking in the corner with too many ornaments clustered at the top. That her mother would squeeze her tight and say, I've missed you. That maybe finally she'd hear, thank you for everything she'd done. Her phone buzzed in the console. It was her mother, a simple text, be here by 5, wear something festive. She showed it to Mira. See, they're excited to see us, she said as much to herself as to her daughter. As they exited the highway and turned onto the familiar tree-lined road that led to the neighborhood, Lana's breath hitched. The houses were all lit in multicolored bulbs, fake reindeer glowing on lawns, inflatable Santas swaying in the breeze. Theirs had always been the modest house at the corner with the cracked driveway and the single strand of white lights around the windows. As she pulled up, she saw it hadn't changed. The lights were brighter than she remembered, though. There were more cars than she'd expected. At least 7 vehicles lined the street and driveway. Mira gasped. Are they throwing a party? I guess so, Lana murmured, confused. Her mother hadn't mentioned any big gathering. She parked along the curb and glanced at the house. The porch light was on and laughter drifted faintly from within. Lana cut the engine. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Mira said, Can I be the one to ring the bell? Of course, Lana smiled, unclipping her seatbelt. Let me just grab the gifts. She opened the trunk and gathered the packages in her arms, balanced the biscotti tin on top, then helped Mira out of the car. Snow was falling again, gentle, almost theatrical, like the universe was setting the stage for something meaningful. They climbed the front steps. No one had come out and to greet them. That struck Lana as odd. Usually her father would be peeking out from the kitchen window waving. But the curtains were drawn and the house, while clearly full, felt closed off. Mira pressed the doorbell. The chime echoed inside. No answer. She rang it again. Still nothing. Lana shifted the packages in her arms and reached for the handle. The door was unlocked. She pushed it open slowly. The wave of sound hit them, first voices, laughter, clinking glasses. The smell of baked ham and rosemary potatoes filled the air. For a second, Lana felt transported. It felt like Christmas. Until she stepped into the living room. Kane was there. Sitting in their father's old recliner, her recliner, the one she used to curl up in with Mira when she was little. He had a mug in one hand, his legs crossed comfortably, and his voice filled the space with ease and confidence. And I told Mom and Dad, I said, I'll take care of it, I'll handle it like always. You know how it is, family comes first. The room chuckled warmly. A few aunts nodded in agreement. Someone patted his shoulder. Lana's feet froze. Kane saw her. There was a flicker of surprise just for a second before his smile returned. Well, well, he said, standing up slowly, arms outstretched. Look who finally made it home. Mira rushed in past Lana, holding out her gift. Uncle Kane, I brought you something. Kane took it without hesitation, ruffled her hair, and turned back to the crowd. Isn't she adorable, just like her mom used to be? Lana stepped forward, unsure of where to put anything down. There were no empty spaces. The table was set. The gifts were stacked in a corner, none of them hers. Her eyes scanned the room. Her mother was by the fireplace, refilling someone's glass of wine. Mom, she called out. Her mother looked up. There was no warmth in her expression. Lana, you're here. Lana swallowed. You told me 5. Her mother gave a small shrug. We started early. Kane said you might be tired from the drive. Kane chuckled. I figured you'd want to ease into things. Lana turned back to him. Ease into... But before she could finish, someone took the biscotti tin from her hands. She looked over and saw her cousin waving, distracted. The gift slipped slightly under her arm. Mira had already disappeared into the kitchen. Kane motioned to the recliner. You want your seat back, he grinned. Lana didn't answer. Because suddenly it was clear. She wasn't part of this. Not really. Not anymore. And maybe she hadn't been for a long time. Lana didn't know which stung worse, the weight of the gifts still in her arms, or the absence of anyone moving to help her carry them. She stood there, awkward, exposed, in the center of a room packed with people who felt like strangers wearing the faces of her family. No one acknowledged her. Not one person said, we missed you. Not one asked how the drive was. Not one mentioned the years she'd quietly been the invisible scaffolding holding the house together from afar. Kane went back to his chair, raising his mug as he resumed his story, now telling Aunt Millie about how hard things had been with the market crashing, how he'd stepped up for their parents. He used words like sacrifice and duty as if they belonged to him, like they hadn't been funded by her checking account for 6 years straight. Aunt Millie nodded with admiration. You're a good son, Kane. Your father must be so proud. Lana's throat tightened. She glanced around the room, every face caught in conversations. Laughter, the swirl of comfort and connection that belonged to someone else. She wasn't angry yet, not furious, not betrayed. Not yet. She was invisible. Her mother finally approached, wiping her hands on a plaid dish towel, her apron smudged with flour. She offered a perfunctory smile, the kind reserved for a neighbor who shows up uninvited. "Hi, sweetie, you made it." "I did," Lana said, her voice low. "I texted. You didn't respond." Her mother shrugged. "You know how chaotic it gets. Everyone's been here since noon. You didn't say it was a party." Her mother's eyes darted away for a beat, then back. "It's Christmas. Family drops by." "Is Dad here?" "In the kitchen carving. Mira's helping." Lana blinked. "She just walked in." "She's a fast one," her mother said with a weak chuckle. There was a pause. Then, as if finally remembering something, her mother reached for one of the gifts. "Let me take that. I've got it." They stood in that soft, heavy moment where 1,000 unsaid things pressed in like a wave threatening to crash. But instead of breaking, her mother said something else. Something colder. Something Lana would remember forever. "Honey," she said, adjusting her apron. "Tonight is about family, the real kind. You understand, don't you?" It didn't register at first, not fully. Lana's face didn't change, but her body did. She leaned back slightly as if physically repelled. "What do you mean, real kind?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mother's mouth twitched. She looked away. "I mean, let's not ruin the evening. Everyone's in a good mood. Let's not bring old tension." "Tension," Lana echoed. "Is that what I bring?" She was aware now that others were listening. A cousin had gone quiet mid-laugh. Someone lowered their glass slowly. Her mother sighed, a gesture rehearsed. "Kane's been here, Lana, through everything. He's been what?" Lana snapped, her voice cracking. "Here. Like physically present. Is that what matters now?" Her mother looked around, clearly aware of the shift. She lowered her voice, stepping closer. "Please don't make a scene." "A scene," Lana said. "Right, God forbid I upset the narrative." Her hands trembled. She set the biscotti tin down on a side table too forcefully, causing it to clang. A few heads turned. No one moved to intervene. And then from across the room, Mira's voice floated out like a tiny arrow. "Mommy." Lana turned. Mira stood just inside the hallway to the kitchen, her small hands wringing the ends of her sleeves. Her eyes searched for reassurance. "There's no chair for us," she said. Just like that, the room shrank. The walls closed in. Time thickened. Lana moved toward her daughter, crouched beside her. "No chair?" she asked, keeping her voice even. Mira shook her head. "Uncle Kane said the seats are for people who live here, but you said we were family." Lana blinked. Her eyes burned, but she didn't let the tears fall. "I was wrong," she whispered. She stood. "Get your coat." From behind, her mother called out, "Lana, don't be dramatic." But Lana had already turned. She scanned the room one last time, burning every detail into memory. The blinking lights, the clink of glasses, the smell of pine and pork roast and perfume. It should have felt like home. It didn't. It was a replica of something she once knew, now inhabited by people who couldn't or wouldn't see her. She reached for Mira's coat, slipped it on her daughter's small shoulders, and buttoned it slowly. "Can I say bye to Grandma?" Mira asked. Lana paused. "No, baby," she said quietly. "We've said enough." Snow hit them like tiny stings when they stepped outside, the kind that falls sideways in wind that knows no kindness. The driveway was icy. Lana carried the gifts back to the car with tight fists, her jaw clenched, each step harder than the last. She heard the front door close behind them. No one called after her. No one stopped her. No one tried. Mira climbed into her booster seat without a word. The silence in the car was dense, like breath held too long. Lana set the gifts in the passenger seat. They looked ridiculous now. Too cheerful, too rapt, too hopeful. She turned the engine. They sat there. And then Mira whispered, "I just wanted to eat cookies with Grandpa." The sob that tore from Lana's throat wasn't loud, but it cracked something deep inside her. She reached back and took Mira's hand. "I know," she said, voice breaking. "I know you did." Mira wiped her nose with her mitten. "Was I bad?" Lana swallowed hard. "No, sweetheart, you were perfect." Then why didn't they want us? Because they never did, Lana thought. Not really. Because they only loved her when she was useful. Because she had become an account number, not a daughter. Because the moment she stopped bending over backwards to prove her place, they stopped pretending she had one. She couldn't say those things, not yet, so she lied, for now. "They don't know how lucky they are to have you," she said, "but I do." Mira looked out the window, her breath fogging the glass. Lana pulled away from the curb. The windshield wipers swished rhythmic and sharp. She didn't know where she was going, only that she wasn't going back. The road ahead was long and black, stretching out like a wound beneath the snow. Lana drove without speaking. The silence in the car was sacred now, too fragile to break, too heavy to name. Mira had fallen asleep in the back seat, curled beneath her coat, clutching the corner of her red dress in one hand, like a child clings to the edge of a dream. Lana glanced at her through the rearview mirror. Her chest rose and fell in gentle rhythm, unaware of the thunderstorm that had just ripped through her mother's chest. The dashboard glowed faint blue, displaying the time 6:14 p.m. Christmas dinner was likely in full swing back at the house, Kane laughing, her mother floating around with a tray of stuffing, her father carving ham as if the night had never had a fracture. Lana's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. She wanted to scream. Instead, she drove. As the miles passed and the snow blurred the edges of the world outside, her mind wandered uninvited back through the corridors of the past. She saw herself again, 29 years old, pacing her tiny apartment with Mira on her hip, shushing her between phone calls. The baby wouldn't sleep unless Lana hummed, and the invoices wouldn't stop piling up unless she worked late. So she did both. She'd mastered the art of typing with one hand and bouncing Mira with the other. There had been a night, she remembered it vividly, when she stayed up past 2 a.m. rewriting a financial report for a difficult client, only to wake up 3 hours later and discover Mira had developed a rash down her side. She rushed to the pediatrician in a panic, still in her work clothes, eyes bloodshot from spreadsheets. And just as she settled into the waiting room, her phone buzzed with a message from her mother. "Electric's out again. Can you send $140? No greeting, no how are you, no how's Mira. Just the number, the ask." Lana wired the money before they were called in. She told herself it was what daughters do. Even then, when she was drowning, she still held out a life vest. Over the years, the requests blurred into a rhythm, unexpected but constant. The roof needed patching. The well pump went out. Dad's meds were no longer covered. Kane needed help with tuition, then rent, then bail. Lana learned to live on less. She cut her own luxuries before ever questioning theirs. She stopped getting her hair colored, bought generic diapers, cooked in bulk and froze leftovers. Mira's birthday cakes were homemade. Her own birthday passed unnoticed. She didn't mind. Or at least she thought she didn't. She opened her email one night, Mira already asleep in her crib, and found a message from her mother with the subject line, "Urgent." Inside, "Kane's car died. He needs $200 to get to interviews. Can you help?" There was no please, just expectation, as though Lana was a faucet that never ran dry. She looked at her checking account, then at the small envelope she kept under the sink, Mira's preschool fund. She'd been saving, slowly scraping pennies. She transferred the money the next morning. Months later, when she asked if Kane ever got the job, her mother replied vaguely, "He's trying," and then changed the subject. There had been no thanks, not even from Kane. She remembered another moment. Mira was 4, dancing around their tiny kitchen in socks, while Lana tried to fix the busted dishwasher with a wrench and a YouTube tutorial. Water pooled on the floor. Lana's hands were shaking. That night, her mom called. "Your father had a scare today. He was dizzy, couldn't finish his lunch." "Did he go to the ER?" Lana asked, heart leaping. "No," her mother said, voice tight. "He's fine now, probably just low blood sugar." "You should take him in. You should—" "Do you have any money left over this month?" her mother interrupted. Lana closed her eyes. "How much?" There was always a number. That's how their relationship had been reduced, monetized, streamlined, stripped of affection, and dressed in transaction. She thought of that again now as the car climbed a slope slick with black ice. The headlights caught on the sign for a scenic overlook long closed for winter. She pulled over, let the car idle. Outside, the snow was falling heavier, each flake a quiet accusation. She looked over at Mira, still curled up, face softened in sleep. Lana reached into the glove compartment and pulled out her phone. She opened her banking app. The transaction history read like a list of wounds. $540 utility payment, Dad's house. $320 medication, Mom's heart. More $100. Car repair, Kane. $700. Rent shortfall, Kane. $300. Heating oil, Christmas 2 years ago. $2,000. Emergency unspecified. Altogether more than $30,000 in the last 18 months alone. And that was just the traceable stuff. The years blurred. The sacrifices multiplied. And for what? Lana set the phone down and rubbed her eyes with the heels of her palms. Her breath hitched, the weight of it all, not just the betrayal from earlier tonight, but the compounded ache of 1,000 small betrayals settled into her chest like frost. She turned slightly, looking into the back seat. Mira's face was turned toward the window now. Her mittened hand still clutched the edge of her dress. She was so small, so innocent, so undeserving of this pain. And Lana, who had once promised herself she'd build a better life for her daughter, then the one she had brought her straight into the heart of hurt. Her whisper cracked in the stillness. "You don't deserve this," she said, voice trembling. "You don't deserve to see your mother erased. You don't deserve to be an afterthought at a table where your name should be engraved." Her fingers curled into fists. "They don't see me, but I see you," she said. Her voice grew steadier, not louder, just more certain. "I see the way you try to make everyone feel loved. I see how you asked if Grandma wanted more sparkles. I see how you practiced your thank yous because you didn't want to be rude. I see your big heart, your hope, your trust." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I will never let them take that from you." Outside, the wind howled. Inside, Lana sat alone with the ghosts of every time she said yes when she should have said no. Every time she swallowed her truth so someone else could stay comfortable. Every time she paid in silence for a seat that was never going to be hers. She looked ahead at the snowy road again. And for the first time in a long while, she began to wonder what would happen if she didn't go back, not just tonight, but ever. What would happen if she stopped carrying the weight? What would happen if she let them feel their own cold? She reached for the heat dial and turned it up. Then she looked back once more at Mira. "I'll find us a different place to be tonight," she whispered. "Somewhere warm, somewhere kind, somewhere that knows what family really means." And as she turned back onto the road, snow still falling, the night stretched ahead, not empty, but full of the terrifying promise that came with letting go, and the sacred hope of starting over. The snow was slowing, settling into a steady drift that blanketed everything in silence. Lana had found a small gas station open just outside town, a flickering neon sign casting pale green light across the slush-covered parking lot. Mira was still asleep, tucked in a ball in the back seat, her breath fogging the window. Lana sat in the driver's seat, phone in hand, thumbing aimlessly through news headlines, trying to think of where to go next. Then her banking app pinged. She opened it with a sense of habit more than urgency, but what she saw made her pulse falter. "Withdrawal alert, $8,000, joint account, family emergency fund." Her thumb hovered over the screen. The timestamp read 5:42 p.m., just under an hour ago, right around the time her mother was smiling tight-lipped and Kane was bragging from her father's chair. $8,000. Lana's brain went blank for a second, then surged with panic. She hadn't approved any withdrawal. No one had called. No one had asked. She tapped into the transaction log. The funds had been transferred to an account in Kane's name. She stared at the screen as if it were lying, but the numbers didn't lie. Numbers never did. Her breath came in shallow gasps now. She opened her text messages, scrolled past the unopened string of cheerful messages from her mother, and clicked into the secure banking inbox. Nothing. No notifications of access. She dialed the bank, pressing through the robotic menu until a human voice finally answered. "Yes, I'd like to confirm a withdrawal on my joint family account," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The representative asked for verification, then pulled up the account. "Yes," the woman on the line said. "The withdrawal was processed earlier today, in person." "In person," Lana repeated, blinking. "Yes, ma'am, at our downtown branch." "Which downtown?" "Westfield Main Street." That was near her parents' house. Lana's heart dropped. And who signed for it? "One moment." She waited, knuckles white around her phone. "Yes, the form was signed by you." Lana's body went cold. "I didn't sign anything," she said, voice sharp. "Well, ma'am, the document was processed with your name and signature." "That signature is forged." A pause. "We can escalate this if you believe fraud has occurred. Would you like to open a formal investigation?" Lana blinked, the world closing in around her. "Yes," she said. She hung up and stared straight ahead. The windshield had fogged again. She wiped it with her sleeve and turned to look at her daughter, still peacefully asleep. The fury didn't come immediately. What came first was betrayal. Raw, physical. It landed in her stomach like a blow. Her own parents, who had looked her in the eye year after year and begged for help, who she had trusted with access to a shared emergency account created years ago after her father's first health scare, the one she funded month after month. They had stolen from her. No, worse. They had stolen from Mira. That $8,000. It wasn't for Lana. It wasn't even for groceries or a hospital bill. She knew with bone-deep certainty where that money had gone. She pulled up Kane's public Instagram. His account was private, but his bio linked to a vague startup page. She'd never paid much attention to crypto forestry meets ethical commerce, it read. She clicked the link. A broken website, error 404. She Googled the business name. One hit. A failed LLC registration from 9 months ago, revoked for inactivity. She sat there for a long moment, eyes fixed on the screen, breath slow and measured. This was no accident. Her parents had taken the money and handed it to Kane, probably dressed it up as a chance, a last push, a family effort. Maybe they didn't even tell him it wasn't theirs to give. Or maybe they did. Maybe he knew exactly what he was taking. She scrolled further through her texts and emails. 2 days ago, her mother had texted, "Can't wait to see you. Do you need help with anything for the drive?" 2 hours before the withdrawal. Lies, sweet premeditated lies. And now the humiliation at the dinner table didn't seem like the most brutal cut of the day. Now it had a companion. Theft. Fraud. Deception wrapped in holiday ribbon. Lana leaned her head back against the headrest. Her throat burned with the acid of everything she hadn't said over the years. She justified it all. The money, the silence, the distance. She'd told herself it was for peace, for legacy, for Mira. But there was no peace in being invisible, and there was no legacy in being looted. She remembered the first time Kane had called her to ask for help. He'd been living in New York, then pretending to write a novel, crashing on someone's couch. She was pregnant, exhausted, and budgeting diapers down to the dollar. "I just need a bridge loan," he'd said. She'd wired $500. The next time he asked for $2,000, then $5,000. Eventually, the requests came through her parents instead. "Can you help your brother? It's a family emergency," always with that word family. What a currency they had made of it. She looked again at the frozen window and saw her own reflection staring back. Dark eyes sunken with fatigue, mouth pressed into a thin, unmoving line. She looked older than she remembered. Worn down not by time but by erosion. 1,000 small compromises had weathered her away. But something shifted inside her then. A crack in the dam. A reordering. The next time her phone buzzed, she didn't flinch. She opened her voice memo app. She pressed record. I'm documenting this for myself, for clarity, for Mira. Today my parents withdrew $8,000 from our joint account, without my permission. Forging my signature, they used it for Kane, again. She paused. Then added, they've not only erased me from the family table, they've stolen from my child's future. This isn't just about money, it's about betrayal. She stopped the recording. She didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, she looked back at Mira, who was now stretching slowly in her sleep. Lana smiled, small, solemn. I'm done, she whispered. Not sad, not broken, decided. For the first time in years, her mind was quiet, her heart steady. This wasn't just the end of Christmas dinner. It was the end of her silence. Lana sat at the edge of her bed, phone in hand, staring at the contact list on the screen. Her fingers hovered above the name Aunt Jo, Mom's sister. Jo had always been the quiet one, the observer at family gatherings. Never the loudest voice in the room, never the first to pick sides. And perhaps that was why Lana still trusted her. She took a breath and hit call. It rang twice. Lana, Aunt Jo's voice crackled through the line. Are you all right? I heard you left the dinner early. Is Mira okay? Lana swallowed. We're fine, she said, though her voice betrayed her exhaustion. I didn't call to talk about tonight. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Of course. Lana took a breath. All these years, all the things Kane's been credited for. Helping the family, supporting Mom and Dad, being the rock, was that real? Did he actually do any of it? There was a pause, a long one. Lana could hear her aunt shifting in her chair, maybe glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. Lana Jo finally said, I don't know how to answer that without upsetting you. Try. Jo sighed. Your parents never gave details, but every time something big happened, when they paid off the second mortgage, when they redid the roof, when Kane got into that trade school for a semester, it was always a blessing showed up, or we had help from someone who cares. She paused, but they never said it was Kane directly, just made it sound like he was involved. Lana leaned back against the headboard, so it was always vague. Vague on purpose, I think. Did you ever ask? I did once. Your mom said there was someone who'd been sending money every month, wanted to stay anonymous. She made it sound like a distant relative or some kind of family friend, but deep down I always wondered, what? If it was you, Lana let out a breath. It was. Jo didn't say anything for a moment. Then she spoke quietly. I'm sorry, sweetheart. They let everyone believe it was Kane. Yes, Jo admitted, they did. Lana closed her eyes not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't hold back the sting anymore. I needed to hear it from someone who wasn't invested in their fantasy, she said. Well, Jo said softly, you've done more for them than anyone else ever could have. You deserve to be seen. After they hung up, Lana didn't move for several minutes. Then, with a resolve that surprised even herself, she walked to her desk, opened her laptop, and began pulling up bank records. It was all there, line after line of monthly transfers, each one like a breadcrumb she had dropped into the past, hoping someone might one day follow it back to the truth. She opened a spreadsheet and started copying the data. $600. March 2017. Medical deductible $200. June 2017. New furnace installment $350. July 2017. Kane's textbook fees $900. December 2018. Holiday relief $100. April 2019. Roof repairs $450. September 2020. Therapy co-payments for Dad $5,000. October 2020. Kane's business launch. She kept going for hours. When the last number was entered, she looked at the total $192,437. Her breath caught. Nearly $200,000. Her hands trembled. She reached for a notepad and wrote at the top of the page, this is what it costs to disappear. Because that's what it felt like. She hadn't just sent money. She had slowly erased herself from the narrative. She had funded her own vanishing. And what had they done with it? Used it to elevate the son who couldn't hold down a job for more than 3 months. Used it to build Kane into a myth, the good son, the savior. While she was the voice on the wire, the account number, the automatic transfer, the one who never needed recognition and so never received it. Somewhere in the house, Mira stirred. Lana closed the laptop and went to the kitchen. The light above the stove hummed faintly as she filled a glass with water. Her hands were shaking, and then she cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, as if she'd run out of space to store the disappointment. The tears rolled down her cheeks and dripped onto the kitchen tile, the only sound in the room. She didn't even wipe them away. She just stood there, glass in hand, shoulders heaving with the realization that no amount of giving had ever bought her belonging. Mama, Lana turned. Mira stood in the doorway in her pajamas, feet bare, rubbing one eye. Why are you crying? Lana opened her mouth, but nothing came out. How do you explain decades of family disillusionment to an 8-year-old? Instead, she crouched, arms outstretched. Mira walked into them. I thought we were supposed to be with family, Mira whispered. We are, Lana said, her voice thick. You and me, that's enough. Mira leaned back. But what if they don't love us? Lana took a deep breath. Then we go somewhere we are loved. Mira tilted her head. Where's that? Wherever we decide to build it. There was silence. Then Mira said, even if it's just a small house. Lana laughed through her tears. Even better if it is. Mira smiled. Then let's build a house. Back in the bedroom, Lana sat at her desk and pulled out a clean sheet of paper. She uncapped her pen and began to write. Not a letter to her mother, not a financial record, not a warning. Just words she had been too scared to say for too long. Dear Mom and Dad, you asked me once why I don't call as often, why I'm distant, why I seem guarded. I couldn't answer then. I didn't know how to explain the weight I've carried, but I do now. It's not about the money, not really. It's about the silence, the way you let others think Kane was the hero while I kept the lights on, the way you spoke of me like I was an obligation, not a daughter. I didn't need applause, I needed acknowledgement. I gave and gave and gave, hoping one day you'd look at me and see not just a provider, but a person, a woman, a mother, your daughter. Instead, you chose Kane's narrative over mine. You let him sit in my seat and speak my name like a footnote. Tonight I realized something. You didn't just forget me, you replaced me. And maybe that was always the plan. But I won't vanish anymore. This isn't goodbye, it's a boundary, one you should have honored years ago. Love, Lana. She folded the letter slowly, set it in the drawer. She didn't know if she'd ever send it, but for the first time in a long time, she'd written something for herself. And that was a start. The snow had started again, fine and dry this time, like dust shaken loose from a forgotten ceiling. Lana stood outside her parents' front door, laptop tucked under her arm, folder in her hand, her breath forming short, determined clouds in the cold night air. The lights inside glowed golden. From within, she could hear the muffled laughter of distant relatives and the unmistakable clatter of plates. She hadn't planned to return, not after what had happened. But betrayal has a strange gravitational pull. Some things must be faced to be buried. She rang the doorbell once. Twice. The laughter died down. The door creaked open. Kane? He was still in that same burgundy sweater, drink in hand. He blinked when he saw her, the smirk from dinner long gone now. You, he said flatly. Me, she replied. You weren't invited back. Lana tilted her head. I don't need an invitation to reclaim what's mine. She stepped forward. He didn't move aside, but he didn't stop her either. She brushed past him, her boots leaving sharp, wet prints on the hardwood floor. The room quieted as she entered. Her mother froze mid-sentence near the dining table. Her father looked up from carving turkey. Several cousins exchanged uncomfortable glances, mouths still full. The scent of cinnamon and guilt lingered in the air. Lana, her mother said softly, like a plea, like a warning. I need answers, Lana said, voice steady, and I won't ask twice. Her mother set down her napkin. Can we do this later? There are guests? This is the perfect time, Lana cut in. You all already made a spectacle of forgetting me. Might as well hear the truth with dessert. Kane scoffed behind her. Always the martyr, aren't you? She turned to him slowly. I'm the ledger you kept writing into. I'm the ghost that paid your debts. Oh, come on, he said, rolling his eyes. You always acted like you were above the rest of us, sending money with this holier-than-thou silence. Who does that? Someone who hoped you'd stand on your own one day. And now what he said, stepping forward. You want applause, a medal. I want accountability. Don't act like this is about the money, he snapped. You want control. That's all you've ever wanted. Lana reached into her folder and pulled out a printed spreadsheet. She handed it to her father. Those are the transfers, she said. Every dollar, every month, every bill I paid that no one acknowledged. She handed another to her mother. And these, she said, opening her laptop and rotating it toward them, are the withdrawal records. $8,000 taken yesterday. From an account that was supposed to be untouchable. Forged with my name. The silence turned dense. Her father squinted at the paper, face pale. Her mother's lips parted, eyes glassy. I never... Her mother started, voice quivering. It was just your father said Kane needed one more shot and we thought... You thought I wouldn't notice, Lana said, voice clipped. Or you didn't care if I did. Kane laughed bitterly. You always thought this family revolved around you. No, she said. I thought this family was something I could still belong to. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. Don't say that. Why not, Lana asked. It's true, isn't it? You let me stand in the snow with my daughter while you toasted the son who can't even hold down a basic W-2? Stop it, Kane barked. You're acting like you're some kind of victim. I am, Lana snapped. And not because I gave. I'm a victim because you all took and then erased me. The room had gone completely still. Even the fire in the hearth seemed to hold its breath. Her mother took a shaky step forward, hands trembling. Lana, I didn't mean for it to be this way. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, Lana said, over and over. We thought you were doing fine, her mother said. You always said you were okay. We didn't want to burden you. You didn't want to feel guilty, Lana corrected. So you told yourselves I didn't need anything. Not a seat at the table, not a thank you, not even the truth. Tears spilled freely down her mother's face now. She wiped them with the edge of her sweater. I'm sorry, she whispered, truly. But Kane was struggling. Kane always struggles, Lana said, because you never let him feel consequence. You let me be the safety net. You turned me into a bank account with a birth certificate. Her father cleared his throat but said nothing. Kane stepped forwards again, anger bubbling beneath the surface. You're not some innocent. You cut us off. You stopped calling. You think you're better because you got out. No, Lana said, voice low and resolute. I think I deserved better. And so does my daughter. Her eyes met her mother's again. I brought Mira here to feel love, to feel warmth. Instead, she asked me why there wasn't a seat for her at your table. Her mother sobbed. That's not she's a child she didn't understand. She understood enough, Lana said. Then she straightened, taking the documents back one by one, folding them into her folder. I'm not here to shame you, she said. I'm here to inform you. Her tone shifted cool, businesslike, familiar. The account is frozen. Any further attempts to withdraw will be flagged. The signature was proven fraudulent. If I wanted to press charges, I could. Her father's jaw tensed. Her mother gasped softly. But I won't, she added, because I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for closure. She took one last look around the room at the cousins who had stayed silent at the decorations, strung over a house that had excluded her, at the empty chair by the fire that she knew would never truly be hers again. If your version of gratitude is erasure, I rescind everything, she said calmly. I reclaim every dollar, every memory, every ounce of belief I once had in this family. She turned to the door. I wish you well, she said without warmth. And then she left. She didn't slam the door. She didn't cry. She walked into the snow free for the first time. The morning after that confrontation, Lana stood in front of a glass-walled office tower downtown. Mira's small hand wrapped around hers. A thick manila folder was tucked beneath her other arm, labeled in black marker, Family Account Closure. She took a deep breath and walked into the building, her heels clicking against the marble floors like a war drum. Across the table from her sat Sylvia Kim, her attorney, sharp-eyed, concise, and as no-nonsense as Lana needed her to be. So Sylvia began flipping through the documents. Your parents had joint access to this account for how long? Since 2017, Lana said calmly. It was meant for family medical emergencies. And you say they withdrew $8,000 without your knowledge? Correct. They forged my signature. Sylvia raised an eyebrow. You have proof. I've already opened a fraud claim with the bank. Signature mismatch was confirmed yesterday. I also have screenshots of Kane's startup being revoked and my transaction log since 2017. The pattern is clear. Intent to deceive, Sylvia nodded, taking notes. This is no longer just a family matter. It's criminal misrepresentation. Lana leaned back in your chair. I don't want to press criminal charges yet, but I want it clear that I can. Sylvia smiled. We'll file a formal cease and desist for unauthorized use of funds and request full reimbursement. We'll also have the bank restrict and audit any joint access tied to your name. Good. I want my name off everything: mortgages, emergency funds, co-signed loans. If they want to live in delusion, they can do it on their own dime. It wasn't spite. It was clarity. Lana had spent years blending guilt with responsibility, generosity with silence. That ended now. As Sylvia drafted the necessary documents, Lana felt her spine realign. Her voice wasn't trembling. Her decisions weren't driven by fear. For once, she was not reacting. She was rebuilding. That afternoon, she and Mira visited the bank in person. The manager, already briefed by Lana's attorney, brought out printed statements and formal termination forms. Mira, sitting on a chair beside her, quietly drew stick figures on the back of an old envelope, 2 people holding hands under a sun. Who's that? Lana asked, leaning over. Us, Mira beamed. At my school party. Lana smiled. About that, we're going to have to find the right dress for you. 2 weeks later, Mira's school gymnasium was unrecognizable. String lights crisscrossed the ceiling, cardboard snowflakes dangled from makeshift clouds. Children in dresses and button-ups buzzed about, music playing, parents chatting near the refreshment tables. Lana stood near the back wall, watching Mira walk toward the small stage in her velvet red dress, white tights, slightly askew hair tied in a loose side ponytail. Her cheeks glowed with excitement. Behind her, a cluster of parents spoke softly about gifts, grandparents' holiday plans. Her grandma made that dress, one mother said, gesturing toward her daughter. Both sides of our family are coming, said another. It'll be a full house. Lana looked down at her own coat. She hadn't told Mira that no one from their extended family would be attending. Not because she couldn't face it, but because Mira hadn't asked. Not once. Children took the stage, lined up by height. Mira stood near the center. The music began. A soft piano intro echoed through the room, somewhere only we know. Lana lifted her phone and hit record. Mira began singing, her voice unsure at first, then growing stronger. The gym fell quiet. Lana zoomed in, capturing every second, every glance Mira cast toward her, the only familiar face in the sea of strangers. And suddenly it didn't matter that her parents weren't here, that Kane didn't care, that forgiveness hadn't come. None of it mattered. Because Mira was smiling. Because Mira knew instinctively that love didn't require a full table, it required presence. The song ended. Applause thundered across the gym. Mira bowed wide-eyed, delighted. Lana wiped a tear and kept clapping, letting the moment stretch. As the children filtered back to their families, a man in a gray cardigan beside her turned and asked, "Your daughter?" Lana nodded, still beaming. "Yes, Mira. She's wonderful," he said. "Came out here like a star." "Thank you," she replied softly. Then came the question she had quietly braced for. "Is it just you two tonight?" Lana paused, looked down at Mira, who was now running toward her. She smiled full proud. "No," she said, "I'm with the person I love most in the world." He nodded. "Then you're exactly where you're meant to be." Later that night, Lana sat on her living room couch, slippers on, Mira asleep upstairs. The house was quiet, warm. On her lap lay the printed response from the bank: full investigation opened, $8,000 flagged, access revoked. Her attorney had also sent her an update. Kane had attempted to withdraw another $1,000 the day after Christmas. The request had been denied. The alert had triggered Lana's legal claim. Sylvia had added a postscript. "Would you like to escalate this into a formal warning? We can open negotiations with legal terms to retrieve past dues." Lana read it 3 times. Then she closed the laptop. She'd make that decision tomorrow. Tonight she didn't need resolution. She had something better. She had peace. Snow had melted into puddles by the time January rolled in. Sidewalks glistened, not with frost, but with the wet memory of it, slippery, reflective, like the past clinging to the souls of those still trying to move forward. Lana wasn't running anymore. Not from family, not from silence, not from herself. That Thursday, she pushed open the glass door of the Public Library Cafe, a cozy corner space nestled between 2 forgotten bookstores. Mira was at school, and Lana had an hour before her next remote client call. She scanned the room, and then there she was, Julie. Shorter hair than before, but unmistakable. She stood at the pickup counter trying to balance a laptop bag and 2 hot chocolates, one already starting to spill over the edge. Lana moved on instinct. "Need a hand." Julie turned startled, then her mouth fell open. "Lana? Hey, Jules?" The hug came easy, like a page that had been bookmarked for years, waiting to be turned. They sat by the window, hot chocolate steaming between them, the conversation beginning with the usual work, parenting, sleep schedules. But it didn't take long for it to stretch deeper. Julie had divorced 2 years ago. No drama, just erosion. Her ex moved states away, barely involved. She was raising her son Dylan solo. "And you?" she asked. "I heard about some Christmas drama." Lana raised an eyebrow. "News travels." Julie grinned. "Small town. Someone saw you walking out with Mira in the snow. I figured it wasn't a holiday card moment." Lana exhaled slowly. "Let's just say it wasn't the family homecoming I hoped for." Julie didn't pry. She just nodded and said, "Been there." They laughed over shared parenting hacks, awkward PTA stories, and how bedtime negotiations with an 8-year-old could rival hostage situations. Something warm began to knit itself between them, not nostalgia, but renewal. That weekend they met again, this time with the kids. Dylan was 9 shy at first, hiding behind Julie's coat. But Mira, never one to hesitate, handed him a candy cane and said, "Wanna build a fort?" By the time the mothers finished their coffees, the living room had transformed into a cardboard castle, and Mira was calling Dylan sir as they defended their kitchen kingdom from imaginary beasts. "They get along," Julie smiled. "They do," Lana said, watching with a tenderness that hadn't visited her in weeks. Later, as she tucked Mira into bed, her daughter whispered, "Do you think Dylan could be like a pretend big brother?" Lana smoothed back her hair. "Only if he wants to." Mira beamed. "I think he does." On New Year's Eve, Lana decided to host something small. Nothing extravagant, just pizza, homemade brownies, a few silly party hats, and a list of dreams scribbled on construction paper. She invited Julie and Dylan. 2 other neighbors showed up with board games and hot cider. Mira greeted them at the door like a host on television. At midnight, they all stood in the backyard, wrapped in coats and scarves, counting down. 10, 9, 8. Mira's hand found hers. 7, 6. Julie passed around sparklers. 5, 4, 3. Mira looked up at her mother and whispered, "This is my favorite holiday now." 2, 1. Fireworks somewhere in the distance. The sky lit up in red and gold. Lana closed her eyes, made no wishes. She had what she needed. A few days into January, an envelope arrived. Cream-colored, handwritten. She recognized the script before she even flipped it over. From Mom. Lana hesitated before opening it. She didn't cry. She didn't brace. She just read, "Lana, I've written and rewritten this so many times I'm not sure anymore what the right words are. All I can say is I was wrong. Not just at Christmas, but for years. I let the loudest voice in the room become the only one I listened to. I let your silence be misunderstood. I mistook your strength for distance, your generosity for obligation. I let you disappear because it was easier than facing the truth that we didn't deserve your kindness. If you're open to it, maybe we can begin again. Love, Mom. Lana folded the letter slowly, carefully. She didn't cry, but something in her chest gave way like snow beginning to soften under spring's promise. She didn't call, didn't write back. Not yet. But she placed the letter in the drawer beside Mira's art, the folder of legal files in her journal. It didn't heal everything, but it was something. And for now, something was enough. Sunday morning came soft like a hush across the rooftops. The light outside was silver and still. Lana stirred eggs at the stove while Mira sat at the kitchen table, tongue slightly out as she concentrated on decorating a homemade card. Blue glitter outlined a heart. The words inside were still secret. After breakfast, they went for a walk. Snow had fallen again, just enough to frost the grass and collect on tree branches. Mira's boots left crisp prints behind her. They stopped at the park, silent but peaceful, sharing a bench. That's when Mira asked unprompted, Mom, "Yes, love, do you think someday I'll be able to forgive people who make me feel small?" Lana paused. Of all the questions she expected, this wasn't one. She looked into her daughter's eyes, those deep, open eyes that hadn't yet learned to build walls. Not yet jaded, but beginning to understand that love didn't always mean safety. "That's a big question," Lana said softly. "I just think about Christmas," Mira continued, "and how I really wanted them to like me." "They should have loved you," Lana said. "They didn't need a reason. They just should have." Mira looked down, but they didn't. Lana swallowed. She reached over, brushing Mira's cheek with her gloved hand. "Come on," she said. "Let's go home. I want to show you something." Back at the house, Lana opened a small fireproof box she rarely took out. Inside were folders, legal documents, tax returns, savings certificates. One of them had Mira Future scrawled in permanent marker. She laid the folders on the dining table. "This," she said, "is where I keep everything important." Mira climbed into the chair beside her. "See this paper?" Lana held one up. "It's the account I set up for you. Every month I put in a little. Doesn't matter if it's big or small, what matters is that it's yours." Mira blinked. "All of that is for me." Lana nodded. "For your school, for your first trip without me, for your apartment someday, for your dreams." Mira smiled, then turned serious. "Did Grandma take it?" "No, sweetheart," Lana said. "She didn't touch this one. I learned to protect it." Then she reached for a blank sheet of paper and drew two circles, one big, one small. "Let me tell you something I didn't learn until too late," she said. "This big circle, that's love. But this smaller one," she drew it carefully, "that's trust." Mira tilted her head. "Aren't they the same?" "No," Lana said. "Love is what you feel. Trust is what you earn, and they don't always come together." She tapped the smaller circle. "Sometimes we love people who don't treat us well. It doesn't mean we're bad. It means we need to build better fences. Like in the backyard." "Exactly," Lana smiled. "Only this one's in here." She pointed to Mira's chest. Mira was quiet, thoughtful. Then she said, "So, I can still love someone but not let them inside my fence." "Perfectly said." They worked together on a new page, drawing people inside and outside the imaginary fence. It was a game, but one that mattered. Then Mira disappeared into her room, saying she had to finish something top secret. Lana used the time to clean the kitchen. She thought about her own mother, about the letter, about how easy it was to inherit silence, how generations sometimes passed down wounds wrapped in tradition. She wouldn't do that. She couldn't. Later that night, after dinner and bath time, Mira emerged in pajamas, holding something behind her back. "I have a gift." Lana sat on the couch. "For me." Mira nodded and handed her the card. Inside it read, "Dear Mommy, you are my favorite person. I used to think we needed a big family to be happy, but I was wrong. I don't need lots of people. I just need you. Love, Mira." Lana read it 3 times. Her voice caught in her throat. She pulled Mira close. And for a long time they said nothing. No vows, no promises. Just breath warmth and the quiet understanding between a mother and the little girl who was learning to love herself because someone had finally taught her how. The snow fell heavier this year. Thicker flakes, slower drift, like time itself had learned to be gentle. Lana stood at the mailbox in her long navy coat red scarf wrapped tight around her neck. Mira was already halfway down the drive trying to catch snowflakes on her tongue. There were only 2 envelopes that day. One was a generic flyer. The other stopped Lana in her tracks. It was a simple cream card, no return address, no decorations, just handwriting she hadn't seen in a year. "Kane?" Her fingers paused, hovered, then opened. "Lana, I don't expect a response. I'm writing this from a place I should have been in long ago. I'm in therapy now. I'm learning things I should have learned before I hurt you, before I failed as a brother. I know sorry doesn't cover it, but I wanted you to know I understand now. I'm not asking to come back. I'm just asking that you know I'm trying. Merry Christmas, Kane." Lana closed the card. No dramatic swell of forgiveness, no tears, just breath. Progress. That night, her phone lit up with another surprise, a call from her mother. Lana stared at the screen, the name glowing. She debated letting it go to voicemail, but something in her hand moved before her mind decided. Hello! There was silence. Then a familiar, tentative voice. Lana, it's Mom. I know. I wanted to ask if I could come by, just to see Mira. No expectations, no speeches, just see her face. I miss her. Lana inhaled slowly. I'm not making promises, she said calmly, but if you come here, you come on our terms. You respect me in front of her. You don't rewrite history, and you don't stay long. A beat. Then her mother answered quietly, understood. 3 days later, Lana didn't tell Mira who the guest was. She only said someone from before was stopping by briefly. Mira, older now in presence, even if not in years, simply nodded. Her mother arrived mid-afternoon. Hair more gray than Lana remembered, eyes more tired. She held a small paper bag with hand-baked ginger cookies, Mira's favorite once. Lana opened the door, offered no hug, just emotion inside. Her mother knelt when Mira appeared in the hallway. Mira, she whispered. Mira didn't rush into her arms, but she also didn't run away. She stood there looking at her grandmother like one would look at an old family photograph pulled from the attic, dusty but familiar. Lana watched. 10 minutes, 15. Polite conversation. Her mother didn't cry. She didn't apologize, but she didn't excuse anything either. And when she left, she looked at Lana, eyes glistening, and said only this. Thank you for letting me try. Lana closed the door behind her. That night, Mira asked, do we have to see her again? Lana sat beside her on the bed. Only if you want to. I think I liked it, just a little. That's enough, Lana whispered. Christmas Eve returned exactly 365 days since the storm that had changed everything. This time there were no invitations, no long drives, no hopes to be welcomed back into someone else's version of family. This time Lana built her own. She and Mira walked hand in hand through the town's Christmas market. Red and green lights blinked around them. The air smelled like cinnamon firewood and roasted chestnuts. A man played acoustic carols near the cider booth. Kids laughed around the carousel. Couples danced in their coats mid-aisle as if no one else existed. They bought 1 cup of cocoa and shared it. Mira picked out a ceramic reindeer for their bookshelf. At one booth, a young artist offered to paint initials on ornaments. Lana chose 2 crystal-clear bulbs. One read L&M, the other simply said begin again. Back home, they curled up on the couch. The tree glowed softly. Mira placed the new ornaments on the highest branch she could reach. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. As the night deepened, a voiceover began, Lana's gentle, reflective, strong. Family isn't where you're obligated to be. It's where you're safe to be. It's not who claims you at dinner. It's who shows up when it's storming. Sometimes family is blood. Sometimes it's who you raise. But always, family is the ones who never make you question your worth. Mira turned to her cheeks rosy. Mom? Yes, love? I like Christmas this year more. Lana looked at her daughter, the girl who had once asked why there was no place for them at the table. She smiled, brushed Mira's hair back, and said, me too, sweetheart, me too. And for the first time in her life, Lana didn't feel like an outsider to her own story. She felt home.